Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi will be delivering his maiden State of the Province address tomorrow. The lack of service delivery is a contentious issue in Gauteng, made worse in the metros by tensions and coalitions. He's also promised to scrap or relook at Soweto's electricity debt. So what can we expect from the Premier tomorrow? To help us unpack this, I am now joined by political analyst Thabo Shole-Mashao. Thank you so much for your time. Thabo, we do appreciate it. Let's just start off with what exactly is the Gauteng Premier going to say to truthfully explain the state of the Gauteng province. I mean, it takes you about 5 minutes in your car to look around and see that this province has deteriorated.
Certainly, Heidi, thank you so much for having me, and greetings to your viewers as well. I think one of the key things that will come out, no matter what, is the issue of energy and electricity in Gauteng. Gauteng, as we know, Heidi, contributes about 35% to the country's GDP. So it is the epicenter of South Africa's economy. And that economy has been sincerely under proper attack from lack of stable power supply, electricity. You and I need not argue about that. I'm sure that will be one of the priorities that he addresses, that he speaks to directly, because it's linked to everything else subsequently. It's linked to unemployment rate, it's linked to crime, and it's linked to the stimulation of township economy that he often loves to speak about. So I think top of priority will definitely be the issues of energy. He will speak about unemployment, definitely, but crime, Heidi, you'd know that last year we had very harrowing statistics, particularly as pertaining to women. Over 10,000 cases of rape were reported in Gauteng police stations between July and September. Those numbers are scary, whichever way you look at it. And in any language, they would really raise eyebrows. And we also know that a number of women have been attacked, and not just women, but everyone of the murder rate in Gauteng is scary. So I think he would be pressed to speak about not just the stats, but actions and how he intends to address those, given that this would be his first. Heidi?
Certainly, and it's interesting that you touch on the issue of crime because it's a very concerning picture, and we do know that the police commissioner in the province has tried to reiterate the fact that they have more boots on the ground, but at the end of the day, it's the realities that women and children face in this province. But let's move over to other service delivery issues when it comes to again, the accessibility to electricity. One of my biggest pains is street lights, potholes, just basic services, access to water. These things have just deteriorated even more over the last couple of years. And you've been seeing these pockets of protests across the province. That is probably also something that he's definitely going to have to highlight, isn't it?
Certainly, he'll highlight that, but I suspect that he will also hide behind the instability, political instability of various municipalities, as we have seen in the previous months. We know what has happened in the city of Joburg, and we have seen mayors changing seats quite often than it ought to have been, that various politicians have been more concerned about coming to a coalition and gaining political positions more than really delivering services to the people who voted them into power. So he will touch on that. And in your intro, you're quite right. The complexities of the coalitions in metros would be used as an excuse for lack of service delivery. But Panyaza Lesufi has got a very difficult task, because you would know, Heidi, in the previous national and provincial government elections, we realized that the ANC received just over 50%. If I'm not mistaken, it was 50.1% or so. That simply says that there is a huge chunk that does not have thorough confidence in his government, and his biggest duty will be to inject enthusiasm, confidence back into the people of Gauteng by telling them and also explaining to them why they should keep hoping that his government will deliver. Also, not forgetting the fact that people are tired of talk. They need action. Deadlines. He would have to, if he wants to at least impress the people of Gauteng, he'd have to draft the deadlines and tell them by when this should be done. By this point, by this time frame, we need to have achieved this. People have heard talk before, Heidi, but now the biggest thing is, will they believe him as he ascends to the podium tomorrow afternoon?
Yes, and you touch on a very important point, because the Premier has a huge task ahead of him. He has his work really cut out for him, especially after President Cyril Ramaphosa announced that this is probably the 2024 elections are probably going to be the hardest and the toughest for the ruling party, the ANC. Do you think that the Premier, let's move away from some of the service delivery issues. We'll go back to, for example, the Soweto electricity debt. But do you think the Premier is the right person to deal with all of these issues and put the right face forward to say, I'm a Premier, yes, I'm from the ANC, but I'm the Premier that will be able to solve these problems and get the province back to where it should be?
On the backdrop of Panyaza Lesufi's performance in the Department of Education and the strong public relations machinery that he drove, it appears as though many people had faith in him more than any other leader, at least in government at the time. So he would be the best person to put forward, especially at the helm of a complex province such as Gauteng. It appears as though he's the only one at this present moment in Gauteng who can at least inspire a little bit of hope. But then again, Heidi, you do know the saying of a one-eyed man in the world of the blind. So he is the best that we have, I think the best that the ANC has thus far. So he may actually try to resuscitate a bit of confidence, not just in government, but in the African National Congress. But it's really a mountain to climb, given the decline in the electoral fortunes of the ANC, as we have seen in various municipalities. It simply means that it's do or die for him, because if really he does not come through for the ANC, 2024 could spell disaster, meaning that either they go into a collusion or the ANC joins the opposition benches.
I want to ask you, I mean, you spot on in saying that he might hide behind the instability within the city of Johannesburg because of what we've been seeing with the mayors chopping and changing. But, I mean, it doesn't have to look far. You can just drive out and you'll find 20 potholes, street lights not working, a burst pipe that's like that for over a week. But I want to touch on the issue of the Soweto electricity debt. It's a very sensitive one, and it's not very clear what Premier Panyaza Lesufi is trying to achieve there. But he says a discussion needs to be had, and he says the whole aspect of the Soweto electricity debt needs to be relooked at. And many would criticize that approach and say it's nothing but, looking at that situation and saying, well, if they can win over Soweto, they might be safe in 2024. Is that the right approach when it comes to relooking at that Soweto electricity debt, or do you think it's just a trick up the sleeve?
It's very complex, because on one hand he needs to govern, and he needs to govern very strictly, making sure that people, the user pay principle of the African National Congress is brought into effect. On one hand, they do need, on the advent of this election, to convince as many people as possible in Gauteng to vote for them. Soweto is a big chunk, and Soweto can really wield a decision one way or the other. So they do need, he is very careful to make sure that he does not alienate the people of Soweto, who have over and over complained that they were not treated fairly. And if he were to use a very strong arm against Soweto, he will pay dearly at the ballot. But then again, if he treads a bit carefully and if he mollycoddles the Soweto issue, he stands then to lose the rest of the confidence of those who've been paying diligently, as he will be seen as appeasing Soweto. And those who've been paying diligently may feel that that they are left behind and they are not considered and they are not acknowledged for having done the right thing. So it's a catch-22 situation for him. He's trying to be very diplomatic by saying, let's put it up for negotiation, and not committing completely. But also, we do know that it's not only up to him, it's really up to Eskom. And Eskom needs to make the final decision. And the final decision is Eskom is sinking. It needs every cent that it can get.
I just quickly want to touch on the issue of e-tolls, because we were told that basically the debt of e-tolls would be scrapped, and motorists were so happy about that, and we haven't really heard much about that. How important is it for him to address that aspect tomorrow? And it's probably going to work in his favor, Thabo, isn't it?
It will work in his favor. The odds have been in his favor for some time regarding this issue. And he will use this issue as a testament to the fact that he's a man of his word. That he did say that they will scrap e-tolls, and e-tolls are not tolerated in Gauteng under his government. So he will want to be a man of his word and say, I told you so, I'm dealing with this issue. Actually, e-tolls are a thing of the past. He has been pushing very hard for that, and it will be one of the key critical things that comes out of his speech tomorrow, just to say to the people of Gauteng, I am a man of my word, and you can trust in me. But it's just a little bit of small comfort, if anything at all, as we know, Heidi, that only a small percentage has been faithful to paying the e-tolls at all. So it might just be a little bit too late, because a big chunk of road users in Gauteng had already neglected their responsibilities of paying. So he will use it as a political ticket, but the critical issues that you've spoken about will be the ones that really make or break the speech tomorrow. Safety, where we live, how safe are we, and the passing away of various individuals of recent, even though it has not been in Gauteng in this instance, to be fair to him, have really made the headlines, and people want to know how safe they are. And you do know that DJ somebody passed away not too long ago as one of the prominent individuals. People want to know how safe we are. Education, very critical to the parents who are also voters. And the issue of also infrastructure, the potholes, the buildings, but unemployment. How is he going to say to the people of Gauteng, I will create jobs? Over 16.1 million people in this province. And to a large extent, to be fair to the Premier, at times, he can also become a victim of his success, because the more job he may want to create, the more people will flood into Gauteng and see it as greener economic pastures.
Definitely. I mean, you touch on such critical points there. Just very lastly, Thabo, I want to ask you about how he's going to tackle the issue of coalitions and the instability that's brought about in this province. We've seen what's happened in Ekurhuleni. We've seen what's happened in the city of Johannesburg. And people are looking very closely at Thapelo Ahmed, who's just been elected as the mayor of the city of Johannesburg, how that's going to play out. He has to play his cards very well. And as much as he needs to keep his cards close to his chest, he also needs to work very closely, because it doesn't seem as though coalitions are going anywhere.
Certainly, and he has been spearheading that element of coalitions, almost playing a big brother to the new mayor, Thapelo Ahmed, whether he's a transitional mayor or not. Almost every press conference that Thapelo Ahmed, the mayor of Johannesburg, has had, we have seen Panyaza Lesufi in his flank, and almost speaking as a big brother, telling him that he need not disappoint the people of Gauteng. But I think largely he wants to tell the people of Gauteng that the ANC has got this under control. The ANC knows what they are doing, and that's why he has been very present. So he will touch on the issues of coalitions, Ekurhuleni, what is to happen, what are the timelines. It would best serve his interest if he tells the people of Gauteng. But more importantly, speaks about the stability of coalitions, that we are not going to see all these municipalities changing mayors every now and then unnecessarily, because it is eating out at the confidence of the voters. So that's one of the issues that he will touch on, to say, I'm in charge. And also he'll be speaking authoritatively, because he's also the chairperson of the ANC in Gauteng, not just the Premier of Gauteng.
Certainly. Thank you so much for your insights. We do appreciate it. That was political analyst Thabo Shole-Mashao speaking to us about tomorrow's State of the Province address by Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi. Now,